Yeah, that was one of the only 30 by 30s that I ever really enjoyed, and I don't watch Sports Center anymore. It's way too
It was this one here, Randy. Approved food, pool lodging,
Page, is it 16?
4.5.
45?
4.5.
Please join me in Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome here Friday morning, the 30th of December, our final board meeting of 2022. Gentlemen, you have the agenda in front of you.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Lemire, a second by Commissioner Jelinski to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, the agenda is approved. Gentlemen, we also have the consent agenda in front of us. Is there any commissioner who would like to have anything pulled from the consent agenda for further discussion?
I'll make a motion we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wincher, a second by Commissioner Lemire to approve the consent agenda before us. Gentlemen, it's a roll call. Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher.
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
And the chairman votes aye. All those voting in the affirmative, the consent agenda is approved. Gentlemen, on the agenda, next at number 5, Land Services. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning. I have
Morning, Miss Amy.
one thing I want to hand out to you for my reports.
Thank you very kindly.
Thank you.
This report you gave us here.
Okay, cool. I should probably. All right. Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, I'm going to start off with the operational report on the Autumn Hills Treatment Facility. If you may recall, that interim use permit was granted, but one of the conditions was that they provide an annual report. This year, since they're not operational yet, Troy, who was the applicant, did provide an update and a report, but I told him I would give that on his behalf this year since they're not operating yet, and then once they're operating, then you will receive this annual report from him. So really, they're just getting up and going. They had some significant delays with from the state of Minnesota because it took quite a bit of time to get their plumbing plans reviewed and approved by the state. And so they're really essentially putting in the septic systems, framing up structures. We've permitted all of those, and so it's really just getting the infrastructure put in right now. They have a hoped opening date of April 2023. So they're hoping to be operating by then. So there was some federal funding that they did receive for this facility as well, and there was some hang up with that, but it sounds like all of that has gone through. So just wanted to bring that on Troy's behalf for you to meet that IUP requirement, and next year you'll be hearing from him. Any questions I can answer? Okay.
Amy, is there, have they received permits from like the State Department of Health or that, or can you comment on that?
Well, I know they had applied from Department of Health and Human Services, their state licensing. I don't know, I think they're working on those, but I think the facility needs to be done in order for those things to be formalized, because there'll be some inspections and verification of of the components of the building for that. So I know that is in process. I know I did receive some inquiry from them regarding their permit status with us and all of that. So I believe that is clicking along, and I don't know that they anticipate any sort of delay with that at the moment.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Anything else I can answer for you?
No, we should be good.
All
Go ahead.
right.
Please continue.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to move into my 2022 annual report. And you did receive that in your packet, and it is here on the screen. So the service areas that come out of the Land Services Department is assessing, planning and zoning, and GIS. So I'm going to touch on each of those programs today. So the next, the page is the 2022 assessing highlights. Again, we remain busy. The quintile is that 5-year rotation. And so we did a review of a little over 2,300 unimproved parcels and 3,400 improved parcels. We had, in COVID times, we had started with a survey out to the people that were in the quintile for that year, and it serves two purposes. One, let them know that we will be on their property and that it's their year. And two, to ask them if they've had any changes to their property that would affect their value. We had about a 50% return rate on those, which is very helpful. And so, like I said, we deployed that during COVID because we weren't doing on-site inspections, but we are continuing that because we found it to be a very effective tool. New construction continues to be strong. We had countywide, and this is including in the city limits, we had 1,300 parcels with permitting activity. So that's in addition to our quintile that we're picking up all of that new construction that is occurring on those parcels. With that, we had also an indicator of kind of the buying and selling and transfer of property. We had 1,761 ECRVs that we reviewed, and that's a document that comes through when there is a parcel transfer to a new buyer. And then we had 155 splits and combines, so people are modifying their existing property and splitting or combining parcels. So we had quite a few of those last year. Applications, 1,200 plus homestead applications. So those are people that are either moving to our community for the first time, or they are moving to a new home and homesteading that within our community. 310 special ag and blind disabled, and 344 disabled veteran and surviving spouse applications that we have processed. The next slide is really just some of that information in a graphical form for you to see, just to see the changes over the last 3 years. When we look at the applications, that's the total number of applications. It's the homestead and the blind disabled and all of those together. The ECRVs, they're steadily increasing, which means we really have a strong market, a strong real estate market. Things are moving. This may change now with the interest rates in 2023. We'll see. We thought COVID would maybe put a damper on that, but of course we found that really made our market explode a little bit. So the quintile, that is, you'll see a reduction in that, and that is the normal ebb and flow of the 5-year rotation. We try to balance those. Sometimes when we see a little bit lower number on the quintile, we are including properties that have lots of buildings that take a little bit more time to value. And then our splits and combines are a little bit less than the last few years. So really, in essence, what this shows us is we do have a strong and steady real estate market at the moment, which means that we do have higher property values, growing number of applications, and number of parcels to update when we have that much movement in our real estate market. And that, to me, affirms our staffing rearrangement that I've spoken with you about and the need for more support in that area. And then we also do have some expected functionality, more functionality with the new software that'll help our ability to run reports and analyze our data a little bit better than we have in the past. Other things in the assessing world that I want to make you aware of that we've been looking at, and as you know, we are in the throes of the conversion to the new CAMA system. We have had some hiccups in the data migration. It's expected, and we're working through them, so that continues to move forward. We did, as you know, when we brought in an abatement, maybe about a month ago, for the reassessment of properties impacted by storms and flooding over the summer. The state did approve those credits and abatements, and we are starting to see the reimbursement back already for those. And the tax credit will be going through when we submit our report to the Department of Revenue, so that'll be an additional program that those people qualified for. We did fill the commercial appraiser position with an internal candidate, and so we have done an internal movement. And then we also did backfill that position. We hired a new field appraiser, and her first day will be January 3rd. So I will be bringing her to introduce to you very soon once she starts. We had a change in the Department of Revenue. Our property tax compliance officer retired, and so he had been our person for the last about 15 years. So we've got a newly assigned person that we will be meeting soon. So that'll be a little bit of a change, and we'll need to get the feel for that new officer. So that's really kind of rounding out my information that I have for you on the assessing side of things. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Questions, gentlemen?
I thought I did, but I forgot.
If I may, Mr.
Commissioner Wincher.
The commercial appraiser,
Yes.
that person, internal, was qualified then?
Yes.
We
Yes.
didn't- I thought we had shortage of the schooling or something like that, the requirements they had to get that position.
We had our staff, the people we have on staff were and are qualified to do commercial work. They're income qualified, which is what you need to have. None of them were interested in the position or had applied for the position when it was open. One of our appraisers had not quite gotten his accreditation. He did get it, and then that qualified him. We had one person that needed to get that, and once he was qualified, then he applied. Yes. Mhm. Anything else I can answer on the assessing side of things?
Go ahead, please
All
continue.
right. Okay, then we're going to go into the wonderful world of planning and zoning. Same kind of information that I'm giving you here. The permitting, about 1,035 were issued. If you compare that to the total number of permits on the assessing side, we were down a little bit in permitting, which means we had a little bit more permitting activity within the city limits this year than we had a little bit more growth there on construction activity. About the same breakdown as we normally see. 33% of those were accessory structures, 22% of those were septics, and 10% dwellings, to just give you an idea of the breakdown and the types of permits that we were looking at. And then with that permitting, we had 73 new addresses. So that means bare property that has been developed or have a structure on it for the first time, 73 of those came online this year. Development review team meetings and public hearings. We had 63 development review team meeting agenda items. 69% of those were variances. That's typical of our development review team. Most of them are variance requests. And then we ended up having 40 public hearing agenda items, and 67% of those were variance requests. So our Board of Adjustment was a little bit busier than the Planning Commission this year. Complaints and violations. We had 81 new complaints this year, 70, and then we also carried over 77 complaints from last year. And then in 2022, we closed 87 total complaints. So that's a 55% closure rate. So we're always carrying over some of our complaints from year to year. So that's just kind of a rolling total that I'll be giving you. On the feedlot side of things, we had 55 feedlot inspections this year. 71% of them were compliant. The remainder of them are conditionally compliant, and it all comes down to paperwork. They're not keeping records. And so what we're doing is letting them know that I need to see your manure management plan, I need to see your application records, I need to see your transfer records, and we give them an opportunity to get those together, and then we circle back. So it's an education informing them that they need to be keeping those records. So we haven't had any real straight-up pollution issues, discharge issues, which is very good. And then we had 8 construction short forms, so that means there was construction on those feedlots that triggered the state requirement to do a construction short form. So that would mean a new barn, a manure pit, any sort of expansion to their animal holding areas.
Mr. Chair. Commissioner Jelinski.
Amy, I have to ask a question.
Yes.
And maybe I should have asked it right away. I think you've referenced the city
Yes,
2 times.
Yes.
I have no idea what you're talking about. What's the city?
the city, the 16 incorporated cities within Morrison County.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yes, so in the assessing world, we handle everything. Everything inside, we value the property within city limits and outside city limits. In the zoning world, we only have jurisdiction outside those city limits, so that's why you see the difference in numbers.
And thank you. That's
Yes.
what I was looking for.
Yes. All right, any other questions?
Yep, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Jelinski, or Commissioner Wincher, excuse me.
Maybe you have this coming up. Out of the 40 public hearings,
Yes.
67%, I was just doing the math, that's about 27,
Mm-hmm.
were variances. Do we keep track of how many of those were approved or denied?
I don't have that number for you, but I certainly can have that number for you, so.
It's interesting to me, this is.
No, and that's a great point, and I'll make a note of it and make sure that that's in my annual report from now on.
That'll work.
Okay, yeah, no, that's wonderful, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lemire.
how do you like the new,
Mike?
how is the every 2 weeks working out for you?
I
or
love
having
it.
2, yeah?
I really like it, I think it, the applicants are very happy because there's a couple of things. They come right off the dirt meeting and go right into the application, and there's not such a waiting period there. And then we're able to keep things moving because we time those meetings with your schedule. So if it happens to be a planning commission item, we're coming that very next week to the planning commission. So we're able to just put those to bed quickly. And so no, it took a little bit to get into that cycle, but I very much appreciate that change.
Yeah, I think it's working out really well, too.
Yes, yes.
Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you. Anything else? Okay, the next slide is really the graphical interpretation of some of that information. You can see permits are down slightly, a difference of 54 permits from last year to this year, so not a significant amount. New addresses were down 22 addresses from last year. Development review team meetings down of 26 agenda items, and public hearings were down 14 agenda items. And then feedlot construction forum, pretty quiet. If you would have, in the mid-2000s, we would have had there was a lot more feedlot building activity than we see now. So overall, we've had a slight decrease in permitting and complaint activity, which has allowed us to wrap up some of those older complaints and give more time to those. So that was a focus of 2022, was trying to wrap up those complaints within the same year that we initiate those. Also, less backlog of those has given us more time to spend on other things and other initiatives, which I'll cover in a minute. One thing that I wanted to highlight too is something that kind of goes on in the background, and this is on top of the land use ordinance violations, is our septic compliance follow-along program. So we receive, when we have a septic system that's inspected, we receive that inspection report. If it's failing, we need to follow up, and that's part of our obligation with the state septic program. We had 78 septic failures in 2022. And so those all initiate a letter out and following along to make sure that they're pulling their permits and upgrading within the time period that they're given to do that. 26 of those 78 systems have already been updated. So we do get some follow-up on those, and people generally do what they need to do within the time frame that they need to do it.
Amy,
Yes.
Commissioner Lemire.
what makes you go out and do a septic system inspection when they sell the property,
Yeah.
or?
Lots of different triggers within the ordinance for septic system inspection. If you're selling a property and you don't have a current inspection on file, that will trigger an inspection. If you are pulling a permit in shoreland, really any permitting activity is gonna trigger a septic inspection. In any other zoning district, it's going to be expansion of the home in any way, that's going to trigger an inspection. So those are the main triggers in our ordinance for inspection.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Amy, is there a shelf life for a permit on a septic system?
Yes. Yes, with any of our land use permits, or, we have a 2-year, a permit is valid for 2 years. So they can work under that permit for 2 years from the date of issuance, and that's not different than the septic system permit. However, if they're updating a failing system, they have a shorter time frame to get it done. So if your system is failing due to failure to protect groundwater, the property owner is given 1 year from the date of that inspection to upgrade whatever's failing. If it's an imminent threat to public health, which is surfacing sewage or a direct discharge of sewage, then they have 10 days to get onto a holding tank status, and then they are given 10 months to upgrade the system. We have way more systems that are failure to protect groundwater than imminent threat to public health. We usually only have a handful of those a year.
So if using myself as an example, if I build a new home and I put install a new septic system, and I don't alter the home, I don't alter the parcel or the ownership of the parcel or anything like that, is there a time point, let's say 10 years out or X number of years out, where the county and/or the state of Minnesota has the right to come and inspect that septic system?
The only time, if you're not so if you build that home and you install that septic system, and for 20 years you don't undertake any activity that would trigger an inspection, the only time we would have the ability to inspect is if we received a credible complaint that something's going on with your septic system, and then we would require you to get it inspected. Otherwise, no, we would have no ability to require that inspection.
And so then a properly installed septic system that has no issues and the ownership has no issues and the neighbors have no issue could be utilized for 30 or 40 years?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Wincher?
Thank you. 2 questions, Amy. One, when you state that if I pull a permit on my shoreline and
Yes.
it triggers an inspection for the
Yes.
septic system, but let's say 3-5 years ago I've had one done,
Mm-hmm.
is that required, or if I give you proof? And then the next, who's paying for this inspection?
Sure. So the first question is, if you don't have a current septic system inspection on file, you need to get one. So on a new install, so if it's a brand-new system, that certificate of compliance is valid for 5 years. So, for example, if you build a home and you put in a new septic system at the time, and then maybe 2 years later, you're gonna add a porch, your certificate of compliance is still valid. You don't need to inspect again because it's still valid. If it's not a brand-new system, but maybe you bought the property and there was a system inspection, that is valid for 3 years. So say I buy a piece of property, I have a septic system inspection, and then a year later, I'm going to add a porch. You still have a valid system inspection on file, and you would not need to get one. So it's if on an existing, so typically, it's if it's over 3 years, then you need to get that. And it is the property owner's cost to bear.
And what roughly does that cost?
We don't do compliance inspections, so we rely on the private sector to take care of those. We do installation inspections. The compliance inspections are done by the private sector. It'll vary anywhere from $200 to $400, depends on who you hire.
All right, thanks.
Commissioner Lemire?
Can they do a septic inspection in the winter?
No.
Okay. What happens if you sell your house in the winter?
Then within our ordinance, we have a winter agreement. And so because we're in Minnesota and you need thawed soils in order to do an inspection, they will enter into a winter agreement with us, which is really stating that you are undertaking an activity that triggers the need for an inspection, but because of the weather conditions, will delay that inspection, and essentially they're entering into an agreement with us where they need to provide one by June 1st of that next season.
Do they need to put money in an escrow or something then to?
No, we
Okay.
track those, so if they don't do it, then it rolls into a violation if they don't have it. So we track those agreements, we track when they come in, and then if we lapse on that June 1st, then we're sending out letters, and then if they don't, then they get their violation letter.
So I'm sorry. I'm
No,
just
that's okay.
curious. So you go there and you determine that, yes, it's a failed system. Does the previous property owner have an agreement that they will install a new one for the new owner?
We don't have any role in that.
Okay, but they could put that in.
Yes, so what we've found with the lending practices now with the banks, most banks are requiring that inspection to be done prior to sale anyway. So our requirement is just kind of another layer in that. Most realtors also will navigate their client through that and want to know the compliance status of their system before they write a purchase agreement. So we have seen, we've seen it always. We've seen it where it's failing and it's a surprise to the new buyer, and then they're dealing with their realtor and the seller on that. We've seen some where they know that it's failing and the seller has escrowed money to upgrade the system. We've seen purchase agreements where it's defined who's going to upgrade the system and who's going to bear the cost. So
makes sense.
it's kind of all over the place with that.
Thank you. That's all I got, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Lemire. Anything else, gentlemen? Amy, go
All right,
ahead.
ready? Oh, right. So on the last part of that slide, actually, if you want to go back one, you'll see all of our activity was down slightly, not a ton, but slightly. And what that enabled the zoning side of things to do is provide more support for the assessing side. So that staff did more counter coverage, more phone coverage, more of that to free up the assessing side, to do a little bit more of their work because they were inundated a little bit more this year. Okay, next page. So these are some other things that were happening in planning and zoning in 2022. finally got that ordinance amendment completed. I don't know if you remember that we had a really big ordinance amendment that we were working on. We finally got it done, so that was a big deal. We also began to work on a compliance sweep of the Enchanted Lakes area. And we were working with the Technology Services Department on piloting a field collection software. This is applicable to other departments that go out in the field for compliance inspections. And what our hope is to streamline the correspondence afterwards. So this is a data collection system where in the field we set up what we're looking for. We have the parcel information, but when we do that collection in the field, what it would do then is we can import that and it automatically creates the violation letter. Right now, that's a manual process, and that is where we get the holdup with our complaint turnaround. And so this is something that we're working with IT on, and something that could be applicable to other departments that do field inspections that need to follow up with letters. So we're continuing to work on that, and it's turning out pretty nice. So we're hopeful. We also, today is the last day for one of my outgoing seasoned zoning staff. He's moving over to Public Works. So we are working to fill that position. So we are going to be short on the zoning side until we backfill that position. That position is posted, and hopefully we'll get a decent pool of candidates to interview. The last thing I have on the zoning side is this aquatic invasive species handout for you. Darren put this together for you just to kind of give you the highlights of the aquatic invasive species program that we administered in 2022. The biggies are the aquaweed stick dispersal. That was actually a really fun project and very well received. We had our partnership grant highlights that you'll see there, where we had a lot of good projects implemented this year with our lake associations and lake improvement districts. And then the results on the backside is the results of the zebra mussel and spiny water flea sampling that we sponsor every year. So we partner with our lake associations and lake improvement districts to collect the samples, but then we send those samples off to the lab and cover that expense. So we can kind of keep our finger on the pulse as far as what's happening with those two invasive species in our lakes. And then we had the Water Festival at Camp Ripley this year. That was on a hiatus for a couple of years, and so we were happy to be back there. And we did the T-shirt handout, and that is just really a nice way to get some aquatic invasive species messaging out to the community. I see a lot of kids with those T-shirts on, and so it's really fun to see that they're wearing them. And then, as you know, we did partner with the Fish Trap Lake Association on siting a CD3 unit at their landing. We did receive the season's data for the usage of those tools, and that is highlighted here for you as well. So, any questions on that?
Questions, gentlemen?
None for me.
All right. Then let's go to GIS. GIS, data requests, our Beacon Statistics COVID dashboard. The one thing I'll highlight is on the COVID dashboard, even though we had 7,711 views, that is down a lot from last year. And I'm sad to say, we are no longer in the running with the Sheriff's Department for the in custody list. We were giving them a run for their money last year, but now we've dropped off. We're no longer competing. So essentially what this information is telling you is the activity of GIS is really a result of all the other activity that's happening in our office and in some of the other departments. That drives that work. So when we're busy, GIS is busy. So that's that's really kind of what this shows. In the feedlot map updates, 142, that means we had 142 manure management plants, feedlot registration changes, all of that. So even though it seems feedlots were quiet as far as for construction short forms, there's a lot of activity that's going on paperwork-wise and that our feedlot officer is handling with the changes that are happening with those feedlots. And you see that a little bit more here. And then also with the public hearing map updates, the public hearings that we have, when we have conditions attached to those permits, as you can see in 2022, 32 of those requests had conditions that we need to follow up with, and we map those. And we put those on a schedule that we have a monthly report that's generated to tell us which permits do we need to circle back with to know whether they followed through with their condition. And so that our work isn't done when that public hearing is done, because we've got that follow-up with some of these properties, and that's where we use the GIS technology to track that.
Amy, on this slide here, under the data requests, can you define for us
Yes.
paid and unpaid?
Yes, thank you for reminding me, because that will change next year. If you recall, about 6 months ago, we had a talk at budgeting time regarding open source data and offering some of our data out on a platform. So we're gonna see these data requests and those paid requests go down next year, but then we're gonna have some subscription fees that will go up because of our separation from the Landshark subscription, and the Beacon now will be separate. So 46 total requests, 18 paid. That means if they're asking for a map layer that needed to be compiled, or if they're wanting to pull in map data, but then also tax data or assessing data. So that's really custom maps that our GIS coordinator is putting together. So it's not readily available, so we charge to assemble that information for someone. So we had 18 of those requests.
Those would typically be for people, let's say, in the realty business or economic development business, correct?
Sometimes it's a lot of times it's private businesses that are asking for information, or utility companies. If
Yes.
they're wanting like their service area and they want to see many different things on one map. That's
Okay.
usually where we get those from.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. I just wanted to touch on the next generation 911 status. Last year I'd given you a status. We've moved in status, which is great. Last year we were in the address validation stage. Now we move to the geospatial validation. This is actually a pretty simple phase. It means we've given the data, and now the state is ensuring those data values fit in the fields and have domain compliance and all of that. So it's just making sure that our data is standardized across the state, and if there's tweaks we need to make, we will. So that is the stage that we are at. Also, you can see on this map where we are compared to some of the other counties. So we are right where we should be. We are ahead of most counties with that data submittal. So we're happy with where we're at, and have no doubt that next year hopefully we'll be in the validation stage. We'll be keeping up with the metro at that point.
And Mr. Chair, if I may,
Commissioner Jelinski.
the state is happy that we are where we are
Yes,
also.
yes, they are.
Very happy.
Yep, so we're on track with that, we're doing just fine, and we're not bringing up the rear, so we're happy about that. All right. Okay, last page, GIS, just to let you know some of the other activities that are going on there. We did have a 2022 edition of the Morrison County Plat Book. We tried to do about a 2 or 3 year rotation for that. One of the projects that our GIS coordinator undertook this year was a government section corner coordinate review. So what he did is looked at all of the section corner certificates that we had to see if we had coordinates. And if they did, then he input those into the map. And so on this map to the right, you'll see there was 2,485 certificates, which are in red, and then 25% of those had coordinates, so you see those in blue. So what that did is he was able to remap 4 sections of the county, which gives us a much higher confidence level in the map accuracy in those areas. The sad part is it's only 0.34% of the county. So we have a long ways to go with this section corner work. Right now, he does have 14 more sections scheduled to be plotting on the map, and that would bring us to 1.5% of the county would have coordinates for their section corners. So now that we've tackled that backlog, now as those certificates come in, now we're going to be in maintenance mode where we'll update as new corners with coordinates come in, and that'll be updated as those come in. So really what this comes down to is the better information we have, the better our map is. And then as we have public works projects, that is, Tony's having that taken care of with those coordinates and section corners being set and all of that. So we know that we'll have a steady march towards that with our road program, and that's kind of where our overlap with the Public Works Department comes in, where we're mapping those as well. So that was a big project, and we're happy to have that done.
We haven't heard or seen face-to-face our county surveyor here recently. And I assume and I'm assured that he's busy out there with what you just shared with us. And we're haven't been exposed to complaints by property owners who are having, let's say, disagreements on identifying property lines out there. Is it fair to say that this investment that the board has made in this is yielding the kind of fruit that was desired? I understand, with what you just showed us, this is a monumental task.
Yes.
And we have a long ways to go.
Yes.
But it seems because things have been relatively quiet, at least for us as a board, that progress is being made in tough areas.
Mr. Chair, if I can take first swing at this, and Amy
Yeah,
can
go ahead.
follow up if she'd like.
Certainly, Mr. LeBlanc.
To go back probably about 6 or 8 months from now, or from today, we as 4 departments that have reached by our county surveyor, Land Services, Public Works, Recorder's Office, and Auditor Treasurer, and we met with our county surveyor, and it was a real nice meeting. What I realized coming into this was we do have multiple departments and one surveyor, so I asked our county recorder to provide greater oversight and leadership to our surveyor and keep them focused and provide some direction, which Jenny has accepted. Since then, Jenny and I have met with our county surveyor twice more, and the last was last month where he presented his annual plan for 2023, which talked about these section corners, and sometimes I use the term to admire the problem, but there is a bit of an issue, but it's okay that we make progress, or it's okay to understand the problem. It's better to start making progress toward it, and as incremental as it needs to be. And that was the plan that was laid out by our county surveyor in conjunction with Public Works, to tie in with the road plan, and so that we can complement each other's efforts and work in concert And that is exactly what he started to show us. So I think there's more of a deliberate effort. It's being led or supervised by our county recorder. I receive quarterly updates, and I would expect when our county recorder provides her annual update, part of that will be the county surveyor and progress being made.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Gentlemen, further questions? Amy?
I don't have anything else unless you have questions for me.
Very good report,
Great
Mr. Chair.
report, Amy. Nice seeing you.
Yep.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
Thank you.
Very good.
The last thing I'd like to say is I understand this is Commissioner Wilson's last meeting. And on behalf of the entire Land Services Department, I would like to thank you for your unwavering support of our department and of your constituents. And it's been a pleasure to work with you. So thank you very much. All right, that's all I have.
Thank you, Amy.
See you next year.
Yeah, see you next year.
Gentlemen, let's take about 4 or 5 minutes here.
Why you say that now?
Gentlemen, we'll call the meeting back to order. Thank you for indulging me. The
Tony?
next item on the agenda here is our Public Works report. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I have two items this morning. Our first one is our annual authorization for our solid waste haulers and recycle haulers, and then solid waste facility operations. So I'm requesting approval for the 2023 calendar year.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wilson and a second by Commissioner Wincher to approve of the waste haulers assignment. Discussion. Gentlemen, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire?
Aye.
The chairman votes aye. All those voting in affirmative, motion prevails.
Mr. Chair, our second item is in regards to our County Road 200 closure. So we're requesting authorization for the resolution to revoke a portion of County Road 200. So a little bit of history on this. This has been an ongoing saga since the early 2010s. As we've made progress, in 2021 of August, we had a public hearing up in Scandia Valley discussing the railroad closure and then the actual revocation of this portion of County Road 200. In September of 2021, the board passed a resolution to move forward with that railroad closure, and then to move forward with the revocation of that portion of County Road 200. And they also, at that time, allocated a portion of the funding that we're receiving for the railroad closure to Scandia Valley in the amount of $300,000. If you noticed in your warrants, I believe it was in there this past meeting. So Scandia Valley will be receiving those funds very shortly. And so as we move forward in June, July this past year, we closed that railroad crossing and put it back to a natural setting. And now we're moving forward with actual revocation. So what I'll do for you here is I'm going to read the resolution for you. It brings a little bit of light on what we're up against. If you see some of the attachments, you'll notice the descriptions of the property along the portion of County Road 200 that we're revoking to the township. And the last page there is a pretty easy to read map. It gives you a good idea what it looks like. The last page of those attachments. Right there. So that's the portion of County Road 200 that will be being revoked and will now become Scandia Valley's Township Road. So our resolution reads like this. Whereas the County of Morrison has held a public hearing in the Township of Scandia Valley to consider closure of the BNSF grade crossing and revocation of part of the County Road 200 described below, and whereas the County of Morrison has completed repairs or improvements on the highways that are necessary to meet the county standards for comparable road in the county in which the town is located, and whereas the County of Morrison has properly recorded with the county recorder all county interest in real estate used for the highway, and whereas it appears to the Board of Commissioners of the County of Morrison and the road hereinafter described should be revoked to Scandia Valley Township, and whereas it has been made to appear to the satisfaction of the Board of Commissioners of the County of Morrison, State of Minnesota, that the hereinafter described portion of County Road 200 be revoked in accordance with Minnesota Statute Section 163.11 Subdivision 5. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of the County of Morrison that the road described as follows, to wit, see attached Exhibit A, including descriptions, parcel map, location map, and B, and is hereby revoked to the Township of Scandia Valley.
Mr. Chair, I'll move on this.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jelinski and a second by Commissioner Lemire to approve of this resolution for County Road 200 revocation. Discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Jelinski.
I don't really know that we need to discuss this one anymore. We've discussed it for years.
We beat
And-
this horse
and
up pretty good.
It's been beat up pretty good. The work is done. It's finally time, and it's over with.
I just like to say good job to you, Tony, for getting
Yep.
Thank
this
you.
taken
Very
care of.
Yep, we'll have one more portion of this coming in early 2023, so that'll be the vacation portion. So this is the revocation, so the road's staying in place. the part of the road that we removed for the actual railroad crossing, we'll be vacating that. So we'll have additional public hearings to address that. But that's a separate item.
And what this does is it turns a county road into a township road.
Yes,
correct?
sir. Yep.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Seeing none, gentlemen, this is a roll call vote. Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson. Commissioner Wincher.
Aye.
The chairman votes aye. All those voting in the affirmative, the resolution passed.
That's all I
Tony?
had, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
You may.
again, we've had some snow issues here over the past weekend as far as giving out accolades to our staff and, you know, again, us county board here, we're here to do a job, you know, so, and again, we get the goods and the bads, but you guys did, I was out, I had to go meet with some residents out during this time. Your staff did a tremendous job on these roads, and I hope you get back there and tell them, because normally you'll get somebody calling and this, when you don't hear nothing, that's a good thing, you know what I'm saying? So please go back there and tell them that you guys did a great job during this time with these roads. My gosh, I couldn't ask for a better.
Thank you, Commissioner Wincher. Yeah, we're very blessed to have a fantastic maintenance staff here at Morrison County and some fantastic supervisors. You know, they do their best to stay on top of it. Sometimes the weather gets us, but, you know, over the past couple of weeks, we've worked really diligently to maintain our roads, and it shows. So I'll absolutely pass those along. I have one other item. Thank you, Commissioner Wilson, for, you know, your support to Public Works over these past years. And as a new department head, I've really appreciated that, so thank you.
Anything else, gentlemen?
Happy New Year, Tony.
Tony, Happy New Year. Thank you for being here this morning. So, gentlemen, I look to our administrator, Mr. LeBlanc.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First item, I'll ask our CFO, Mr. Bernarski, to come forward.
Good morning, Kurt.
Good morning, Kurt.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Kurt.
So what I have for you today is the annual request for approval of the assigned, restricted, and committed fund balances. So in the second page there, that list, the only change from past year is the assigned for public health programs has been moved to the social services fund, and that was part of that merger that took place in 2022. So just kind of background there, we reach out to the department heads, and department heads get back to me if they want to either eliminate or add an assigned fund balance, basically a little piggy bank for some projects. So if there's any
Gentlemen,
questions.
wishes of the board on approving the assigned fund balances and the restricted fund
I'll make a
balances.
motion to approve the signed fund balance. As presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wincher and a second by Commissioner Jelinski to approve of the restricted and assigned fund balance accounts as presented to the board. Discussion. Commissioner Lemire.
Can you explain the difference between assigned and restricted?
Restricted is set by the legislature, some sort of statute, and it can only be spent certain ways, where assigned is more on the department heads and the commissioners to decide how those get used.
Assigned can be used wherever, the restricted has to be used within the
Yeah.
appropriate.
Right, exactly, and they're calculated a little bit differently, so like jail inmate cost, there's only a couple jail line items that go into that as far as revenue and expenses, that kind of thing, and there's only certain things you can use those for. Where assigned, if the board wanted to use
Something.
that elsewhere, they could definitely approve that.
Okay.
If
And
you
then committed, I assume that's similar to a restricted.
Yep, it's similar. The only, I guess, difference with that is it's still up to the board how to use that, but that's a dollar amount that's set by the board rather than a calculation from the departments
Okay, very
based
good.
on their revenue and expenses.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, gentlemen, this is a roll call vote. Gentlemen, the chairman votes aye. Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson? All those voting in the affirmative, motion prevails. Mr. LeBlanc?
The
Kurt?
the only thing I'd add there is, that's not listed as the unassigned fund balance in the general fund, and that was as of the end of last year, what the auditors had come up with was 7.9 million was unassigned in the general fund. So it's a healthy dollar amount, but we try to take care of that too. And the only other thing I have is the IRS set their mileage rate for 2023, and it is 3 cents higher than the current rate. So if you'll remember, I think it was July 1, they upped it, which is unusual for them to up it in the middle of the year, but they did last year to 62.5 cents per mile. So next year, that'll be 65.5 cents, and that's as of January 1st. And I will send out the updated expense form, and we'll get that on the internet.
You'll send that to each commissioner?
Yes. Yep.
And Mr. Chair, there's no need for a resolution on that, as our resolution is to be aligned with the IRS mileage rate. So effective 1 January 65.5.
That is all I have, unless you have anything for me or any questions.
Questions for Mr. Bernarski?
Kurt, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank
Happy
you
New
for
Year.
your work this year.
Thank you.
Well,
Happy New Year.
Great year.
Yep, see you next year.
So, Matt, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple items this morning here before committee reports, and that the first of which, as one of our final acts in 2022, is to set the 2023 salary for county commissioners. And before you in the packet today, there are two resolutions, but the first resolution is the recommendation from me to the board, and that is to stay consistent with a 3% COLA increase from the previous year. Your 2022 rate was $34,881.60 for a salary. The proposed for 2023 is $35,921.60. Again, that's consistent after applying a 3% COLA rate.
I'll move on this, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jelinski and a second by Commissioner Wilson, or Wincher, excuse me. Discussion. Commissioner Lemire.
Just want, as I stated in the budget process, I'll be voting no on this.
Okay. For the discussion. Gentlemen, it's a roll call vote. Gentlemen, the chairman votes nay. Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
No.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
The vote being 3-2 in favor, this resolution passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. LeBlanc.
In accordance with statute, last week, the board held a closed session to discuss my annual review, and in accordance with statute, as an outcome, I'm supposed to briefly explain, or that it's captured what was discussed in the performance evaluation, and so I will attempt to do that, and of course, if I miss anything, feel free to add to it. So last week, I received my annual evaluation. It was generally positive in nature. I was encouraged to continue to care for our people, both our residents of the county and our county employees and staff, continue to learn and gain knowledge as I get involved in county government, stay involved and visible, again, with the staff and the community, and to continue to provide feedback and input to the commissioners. Those are my highlights from that session.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Gentlemen, comments. Commissioner Wincher.
You know, he mentioned that it was generally a good performance review. No, it was not. I'll disagree with you. It was a great, excellent review. So again, I think he's doing a good job for the county. So again, thank you.
And that's exactly, Mr. Chair, how the review, and Commissioner Wincher, it's exactly how the review came out. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
The staff and department heads make me look good, gentlemen. It makes it easy.
Commissioner Wilson.
I would agree with that, too. He's done a great job.
And he does have a great staff. There's no
Yes.
question about that.
Yes, it's a team effort to make everything work properly.
Commissioner Lemire.
Same here. Well, we have no complaints. It went fast, though. It seems like we only hired him a few months ago, but he's grown a lot since he's got here. Good job, Matt.
Yeah, I think I echo that. I think you've done tremendous work in your first year as the county administrator for Morrison County. At this time too, I also want to say thank you to Beth Hamlin for her work in helping us prepare that process to do a proper evaluation of our lead executive. And I also want to extend my gratitude to my colleagues on the county board for engaging in that process, that we do that, and we had a good process, and we're able to follow that. So my thanks to the rest of the county board. So to that,
And Mr. Chair, I'd ask after committee reports if I could have a couple more minutes of the board's time prior to adjourning.
certainly. Do we have other business, Mr. LeBlanc, that you would like to review with us at this time before we do schedules?
No, Mr. Chair.
Gentlemen, I look to our chief clerk, who keeps us on track. Tabitha.
Let's just do 1 week. We're gonna do January 8th through January 14th.
Well, last time I get to say, I'm looking to our leadoff hitter, Commissioner Jelinski.
All right, here we go. Let's start with January 10th at 8:30 in the morning. We have a planning meeting. At 6 o'clock that night, we normally would have a PCBOA, but that is off. We do not have PCBOA on the 10th. On the 11th at 8:30 in the morning, there's a department head meeting. On the 12th at 10 o'clock in the morning, I have a Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board Next Generation 911 virtual meeting. And on the 13th at 10 o'clock in the morning, I have a Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board RAC meeting, which is also a virtual meeting. Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Commissioner Wincher?
Okay, I was just writing something down. We're good to go, except on, the 5th, I'll be meeting with the DNR about this, Camp Ripley Veterans Trail, and that's gonna be at Public Works. A couple of township supervisors will be there from, Bellevue and from Little Falls Township. And just to move forward, they say that would be it.
What time is that?
Oh, that's at 11 o'clock.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Did I screw up? Are we doing from the 8th? Okay, sorry.
I just added that one.
Sorry. Thank you.
Commissioner Lemire?
I don't have nothing to add. How come I have, that drug meeting? When is that?
Yeah, so, Mr. Chair, as a reminder, our sheriff came in front of the board here a week or two ago and discussed an initiative by the city of Little Falls, chaired by our police chief, Greg Schermers, and he discussed a forum where the community leaders of different agencies, Health and Human Services, law enforcement, and other leaders. And the question was, when is that occurring? And the answer is January 12th at 10 o'clock. January 12th at 10 o'clock. And again, from my perspective, if more than 3 of you plan on attending, if you could let us know so we could advertise it. But January 12th at 10.
I'd love
Okay.
to be there,
I
but
can't make
I'm already committed to be gone that day.
I want to be there.
So, and
Thank
I
you.
have,
That's all I got, Mr. Chair.
yep, and I have nothing to add to that, so we should be,
Yellow ribbon? Is there yellow ribbon?
That should be,
3:30 on the 9th.
there you go.
Thank you.
That's after the 8th.
thank you, Tabitha.
Mr. Chair, on the last couple items for 2022, as we close this year out, the first is on behalf of the staff here, we'd like to present a certificate of appreciation to you as serving as the chair of this county board, and as well the gavel that has been inscribed with your term as the chair here. Thank you for that service and for leading us through our discussions and with all of the levity that came with it when in your absence and the brevity. But we've appreciated your leadership, and you said from the beginning that you will take the time to discuss the topics, and I believe we've done that, and I appreciate your service on behalf of the staff.
Please join me.
Honor for me to sit in this chair and work alongside you, especially in your first year. And I think this has been it's been a great year for me. Thank you, Zach.
He just keeps on going.
Thanks.
Good job, Mr. Chair.
I wanna take this second then, to say thank you to someone that I need to say thank you to, when you're in this role. I would be fumbling around like I do with a lot of things, but I wanna extend my sincere appreciation to our Chief Clerk Tabitha Ma for her patience with me and her ability to keep me on track during the activities of the meeting, and her patience with me with making sure all the paperwork gets signed. So please join me in giving her a round of applause. Thank you.
You actually deserve a certificate, Tabitha.
Exactly. Much more than a certificate, Tabitha, much more than that.
And I think
got
Mark's
my
gonna
dig
be
in.
frustrated if this, if he's not able to hear me, so I'll try. And our last item, gentlemen, I'd like to bid farewell to Commissioner Wilson, wish he and Pearl the best of luck. Thank those that came in attendance today, our department heads, and it's a testament, Commissioner, to your reach and impact across the county board, as well as the staff, for your years of service, not only in this position, but in others across the community and in the area. We are extremely grateful and humbled to have served alongside you. We want to wish you the best of luck, and thank you for all that you've done for Morrison County. Thank you, sir.
I just want to say thank you to all of you. It's been a pleasure. I've always enjoyed doing these things, and it's been a pleasure to get to know every one of you. And I'm glad things are in good hands and things will continue to grow. So thank you very much for all your support and everything. Thank you. Thank you.
Is this in the way?
Okay.
Perfect.
Commissioners, can we leave you seated real quick? Mike, can you go up in the back with department heads? Can you come on up, please? We'll get one more photo here. Tabby, if you could take it. Wow.
Sure will. Zach, I sent you a text.
Okay, yeah.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Relatives?
Tabitha?
Was he a realtor or they built it?
He's down in the city. He turns houses and then he also does a lot of rentals.
Professional today.
Yeah, he's down in the
Better start
city.
directing there, Zach.
Yeah, where's the center?
Hands on the table?
Hands on your,
Brian, come on up here.
Yeah, he's. No talking and everyone's.
here, Brian, if you wanna sit on my lap, go right ahead.
Okay, let's see.
Teeth, I wanna see teeth.
We found it. There we go.
Poor guy.
How do we look?
Shoulders straight.
Don't tell them the truth.
Good.
Do you want that on black?
Oh, yeah, that'd be good.
What?
Whoa.
Sorry.
Bet you can't do that again. Okay.
Say when.
Yeah.
All right, 1, 2, 3. I'll do one more here. 1, 2, 3.
Perfect. Thank you all very
Kevin,
much.
could you send us all a picture of that?
Thank you.
Sounds good. We'll see you. Thanks a lot, guys.
And I especially, I also, I have to thank Nicole for blocking that ugly.
That's yours, buddy.
That's a good one, Zach.
Zach, we didn't even notice it.
Oh, I did.
I'd say you kept saying a little more right there.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Gentlemen, any further business you'd like to discuss, take care of?
Can I just say something about my fellow colleague?
You certainly may.
You can go through life and meet a lot of good people, but you very seldom come across someone as great as you are. Your shoes are gonna be hard to fill because you were one of the best commissioners to your constituents that I've ever met. You will be missed, and I value your friendship so much, and it was an honor serving with you. Thank
Very
you.
much.
Good job, Mike. Thank you, because I don't know that I can top that one. Mike, thank you very much.
Yep.
Good, guys. Thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure working with all of you. So,
Gentlemen, anything else?
Mr. Chair, motion to adjourn.
I was gonna do that.
Yeah. Let him do it.
Excuse me, sorry about that.
To adjourn.
Whoa, just relax a little bit.
Tabitha?
Oh, yeah, okay, go ahead, you're on.
Tabitha, we have a motion by Commissioner Wilson and a second by Commissioner Jelinski that the Morrison County Board would adjourn at 10:23 here on Friday, the 29th.
30th.
If I may have more of a discussion before it's officially adjourned.
Well, I have to ask for discussion, it's a discussion.
I appreciate Mr. Wilson making the motion to adjourn the meeting, but I think since this is your last year as going out as chair, you should make that second.
I'll revoke my second.
So the,
How do you think of that?
holy,
Revoke that
this'll be this'll be the first time in the year of holding the gavel that I made a motion or a second. And so the motion to adjourn is made by Commissioner Wilson, and the chairman seconds that. Gentlemen, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, we're done.
The question